Welcome to First Byte, our Detroit Lions preview podcast, where we are breaking down Lions' next upcoming matchup. It's week 16. It is finally Minnesota Vikings week. We have waited forever for this, I guess. I don't know. We've got mixed feelings about the Vikings. We're going to get into that in a little bit. My name, by the way, Jeremy Reisman, the producer of Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. With me, as always, co-hosting this thing is senior editor Pride of Detroit is at Ryan_POD. Ryan Matthews, how we doing tonight, my friend?
I'm doing well, but don't bury the lead.
What's that?
Get to the guest. Get to the guest. It's what the people have been waiting for.
Let's not feed the man's ego that much. I unlike him on his podcast, I did not ask what I should call him. So I'm going to run through my own notes of what his titles are, which is the writer of his own Substack called the Wide Left post.substack.com. I don't know how Substack works, but he's got his own Substack, which is definitely worth reading, subscribing to. And
you sound like you're familiar with it, for sure.
And he is the co-host of the Norse Code podcast, which books the best guests, without a doubt.
And Arif. And we also booked you. Yeah.
Okay. Arif Hasan is here. Arif, how we doing, buddy?
I'm good. I'm excited to get some Pride of Detroit stickers, right? That's like the...
Yeah. I guess I do have to return the favor there, huh?
Yeah.
We're working on a shower curtain.
Yeah. You'll work your way up there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get to it. Breaking down Lions, Vikings here. We like to start with the opposing team's offense first, going against the Lions' defense. So, of course, we have to start here with Nick Mullins. I think I read your article about the kind of Mullins versus Dobbs debate. Seemed like maybe you came out on it was a good decision to go to Nick Mullins. Do you still stand by that decision after the Bengals game?
Yeah. I think that it's more that his familiarity with the offense allows the Vikings to call a wider range of plays. And the receivers have the ability to run stuff like option routes or make side adjustments, or the hot routes will be something that Nick Mullins will be able to pay attention to. Dobbs's like introduction to the offense has been like very basic. Like famously, in that first game, the plays were being explained to him in the headset by Kevin O'Connell, right? It's just like nuts stuff, which is like cool. It makes for a great story, but in terms of like sustaining an offense, that's like not wonderful. And so Mullins, who's been familiar with the offense for 2 years, has had time in a very similar system with Shanahan before, knows kind of like, first of all, what the plays are called, which I think is like good. But also like knows that receivers have to make this adjustment here. He knows what the timing is. He knows kind of generally speaking, like where the ball should go in terms of like ball location for the design of the play and the receiver preference and stuff like that. So it's like less a talent question and more a familiarity question. I do think that like if they both had the same amount of time to learn the offense, it's probably, but not definitely the case that Joshua Dobbs would come out ahead. But the fact that it's not definite, I think, tells you pretty much outright that Nick Mullins probably should have the job just based off of that familiarity.
Well, so the other thing too, Arif, is that like, I mean, you're no stranger to Nick Mullins. Like he's been in the building for longer than Josh Dobbs has been. Is there any advantage that you see, like especially going back to the first start against, or the second start, I should say, against Cincinnati? Like, was there anything in that game that made you say like, oh, like Kevin O'Connell can build something out of Nick Mullins here down the stretch for these 3 games?
Build something, no.
like a life raft to get them to week 18, Arif.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. I it's just no monuments or anything, that's for sure. But dinghies, yeah, for sure. Tugboats, yeah, I'm here. Cruise ships, yachts, not as much. I think that having an offense that has Justin Jefferson healthy is always going to give you a bit of a chance. Just interestingly, something that Joshua Dobbs didn't really have access to. It's kind of an unfair competition. Jefferson was healthy for one game that Joshua Dobbs was active, and in that game, a lot of Vikings fans said Dobbs like threw a hospital ball and injured Justin Jefferson. And while that's not necessarily untrue, it's also a little unfair because receivers take that kind of hit all the time. Just so happened that one literally sent Jefferson to the hospital. And so, Dobbs just hasn't really had the same opportunities as Mullins. But I think it's still fair to say that kind of regardless, Jefferson always kind of gives you a chance. He has an enormous catch radius. He's got the ability to kind of get open at a moment's notice. And we saw like in the game when he was playing that Jefferson has this like gravity to him where teams will rotate their coverages in his direction. They'll outright double him in ways that, because a lot of people talk about like doubling receivers a lot, and really what they mean is like bracket coverage, or you've got somebody kind of always underneath. But like Calvin Johnson was like doubled, right? Like there were like two people on him. And like we're seeing that with Justin Jefferson, which is like nuts because he's not like a physical phenom in the way that like Calvin Johnson is, but he still like requires and demands that kind of attention that opens up space for a lot of these other players like TJ Hawkinson, of course, who you're familiar with, Jordan Addison, who's having a really good year, and KJ Osborne, who is a player. Having that kind of space available has been pretty big, I think, for making that offense effective. And I think that with Mullins, who knows where all those receivers should be, you've got the ability to do something like that. I don't know that Kevin O'Connell is calling plays any differently from Mullins than he would for, say, Kirk Cousins or anything like that. I think he's calling basically the exact same offense. But I think that Mullins doesn't have the same armory of throws available to him. So you're not going to see as many throws to the outside deep, right? Because I don't think he's got the arm strength necessarily. You're not going to see as many tight window throws, or we would hope not. Actually, he throws a ton of tight window throws, and I'd rather he throw less. But the offense is not asking him to, is maybe a better way to put it, and he's just like choosing to. He like led the league last week in tight window throw percentage. It's just like that guy. Okay.
So he doesn't lack moxie, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. No, he's very confident. He's a wild dude on the field. Off the field, he seems pretty chill. But but like like there's like this thing about like these backup quarterbacks. We always kind of assume that they're fairly careful with the ball, especially when they're not super athletes. They don't have the skin tone we associate with people who are high variance quarterbacks. Just not fair to people like Tyrod Taylor or Jalen Hurts, but whatever. I'm just talking about perception, right? But Mullins like puts the ball in danger like a lot. Yeah. And like there's a play last week where he's going to the ground and he just like throws the ball up and like the defensive lineman is like, "Oh, I've got a pick now. That's crazy. I didn't really expect that going in." And he has a pick. And then there's like another play later in the game where he does the same thing. And of course, he gets rewarded with a 37-yard touchdown. Jordan Addison's like picking it up off the like it's just crazy. Terrible ball placement. Jordan Addison bails him out entirely. Has a ton of excellent yards after the catch, and he's like I always expected the ball to be there. He's like grabbing the ball and running. It's crazy. It's very like, oh, he's got like Case Keenum luck right now. That's great. But yeah, so he'll put the ball in danger and stuff like that. But he still like operates the offense, which is not something that Dobbs did, and that allows Kevin O'Connell to have the offense he intended to have out on the field.
So I guess is that the reason why? I mean, you look at the stats of the day. You look at how generally Minnesota was able to move the ball in that game against the the Bengals. Is that? I mean, he had over 300 yards. He completed like 78% of his passes or something like that. Is that what he's just good at? Is just kind of like operating in a system that has all of the appropriate parts around it? Like, I mean, we were having this conversation a little bit about golf. Like, is he just a guy that, to channel my Cam Newton here, is he just like a decent game manager outside of all these dangerous passes that he's making?
Yeah, we don't have to get into the debate about what a game manager is. I'll just agree. Yeah, basically. He'll operate the offense. Yeah. All the sticks and levers are available to him, and he'll be like, press that button, he'll move. Like, it's fine, right? He knows how to do the thing. But yeah, it's interesting because, like you say, 78% completion percentage, which, by the way, I think it was like +9 in terms of like expected, like CPOE was +9. Yeah. Seeing that number right after the game, like looking at the RBs don't matter box score, I was just like, that's no way. And I was like, yeah, he made all those passes and they were all fairly, that's crazy. He should not be he's not that accurate. Okay. So I think the receivers bailed him out, like, and that's like the nuts thing. The last like full game Joshua Dobbs had, he had 6, or not full game, 3 quarters. He had 6 drops from receivers, right? And they won 2 of 8 contested, or 1 of 7 contested catches. And then Nick Mullins has a full game, no drops. They won all but 1 contested catch. And some of that has to do with ball placement. Some of that is like the catches are a little bit, so a drop is a little bit different. But a lot of that is just like, hey, he got lucky, and that's great. That's good for you, man. But he's more accurate, but he's not substantially more accurate. The thing is, it's on time is like the huge deal. And so the offense is in rhythm basically the whole time. The offensive line is extremely good. Not something I expected to ever say about a Vikings offensive line, but it's extremely good at pass protection, and that helped out a lot. And then Ty Chandler had like the game of his life, and they had a really good run blocking unit that week, and so that kind of helped a lot. Is that when you're getting 8 yards a carry on first down, I think he had 4 first down runs where he gained exactly 8 yards. Like, okay, yeah, Nick Mullins can work with that.
Right.
So he's been put into kind of manageable situations too, which has helped.
Yeah, and I know I don't think Madison hasn't practiced at all this week so far, and it seems like for all intents and purposes it's going to be Ty Chandler who gets the opportunity. How much he's played pretty well. I mean, over the past couple of games, 4.8 yards a carry. Is that enough to really help, I guess, the offense as a whole stay on rhythm and help Mullins along? And do you think that's something that's repeatable against a team that isn't the Bengals? And I think they ranked 29th in run defense.
Yeah, I'd answer that last one first. No, I don't think that's repeatable. The Bengals well, especially because the Bengals run defense statistically is quite poor, but you also have to take into account the fact that like DJ Reader was injured very early in the game,
right.
So they were up against a much softer run defense than would be typical for even a soft DJ Reader. Fantastic. He's not the reason that they've got a soft run defense, but without him, it's substantially worse. So I think that's a big part of it. The Vikings run blocking unit is pretty good. I think the PFF grades are good, and the ESPN run block win rate is not quite as good, if I remember. But based on kind of just watching, I think that they tend to be fairly good. And then Alexander Mattison is just not lived up to what they've provided. I think that he's just not a very good running back. He knows everything, which is why he's the starter. But I don't know that he's got kind of the burst or the juice to be an effective running back. It does not look like he'll play this week, so Ty Chandler is going to get the opportunity. I broke down a little bit of his statistics and a little bit of his film over at a piece over at Zone Coverage, where I talked a little bit about what he provides and what's a little bit different about him versus Madison. And right now, in terms of EPA per play, he's like a top 10 back, which small sample, it was like 70 carries. It's a small sample, but it's also pretty high in success rate too, which I think is somewhat meaningful in those samples. And the run blocking has been there, right? I just don't think that against a genuinely good run blocking front, because like Ty Chandler's carries have not just come against the Bengals. I mean, they've come against like the Raiders, like ooh, right? like it's not comparable,
right?
And so we'll see what happens when Garrett Bradbury has to go up against like real life nose tackles, and whether or not he's got the ability to continue to create big run lanes. I don't think that the run game is going to be catastrophically bad or anything, but I just don't think it's going to be as big of an asset as it has been even over the past couple of weeks, because Madison has averaged fairly well over the past couple of weeks as well, but against like run defenses that are somewhat soft.
I want to get a little bit back. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the Vikings. Yeah, I was gonna say the Vikings do rank 10th in adjusted line yards. So I mean, and 20th in open field rank. So I think that kind of tells you, hey,
not
they don't really have a guy who once he gets past that line, he's doing a whole lot.
And it's almost entirely an Alexander Madison problem. He just doesn't have it. So when Ty Chandler gets some space, he really is a spark plug. He can really move.
I want to get back to the passing game a little bit, because I think the Vikings are a top 10 team in terms of early down pass rate. They like to do it. They've got the people to do it. Jordan Addison's having a hell of a year. But at the same time, with Mullins in there, I think his ADOT was just about 6.8 last game, or at least for the season. Is that how they like to attack? Are they kind of a more short yardage passing attack, at least with Mullins, or is that just kind of what they do in general anyways?
With Mullins, with Cousins, they like to throw deep a little bit more often. Actually, a lot more often. It also depends on how confident they are in their play action game. They're a team that very much like, if we can't run the ball, we can't do play action all that much. Which like Kirk Cousins has pushed back at. Like, he's been like, hey, the data says that you can, and I feel it, and it's like, okay, dude. I mean, you're right, but like, do you have the gravity to say that? Like, it's like one of those things. he wants to do play action a little bit more. Obviously, it kind of doesn't matter anymore that he wants to do it. But that is kind of a big part of like when they do pass deep a lot. But they have when they've got like all the receivers healthy, they do like to throw the ball deep. If either Hawkinson or Jefferson are injured, they change the route concepts to be a little bit more shallow. But because one of them is always pulling an additional defender, you've got some opportunities deep that you otherwise wouldn't have. And now that you've got Jordan Addison, who is a really great deep ball receiver, I mean, that's like primarily the thing that he's good at, honestly. You're creating a ton of opportunities to throw deep. But again, with Nick Mullins in there, Mullins, I don't think completed a pass over 20 yards last week against the Bengals. So I think he had like one attempt, wasn't complete. I get it. It was like, I'm not doing that again. So it just wasn't there. So yeah, I don't think that we're going to see a tremendously deep passing game. If there are opportunities, right, I think that they'll be like, hey, Melifonwu was making a bunch of mistakes. He's not doing the stuff that he was doing the last 2 weeks. We're gonna throw over the top. They'll probably do it, and they'll have Nick Mullins like try to do it, and then Jordan Addison's got pretty decent ball tracking, and they'll try to take advantage of it. But I don't think that they'll. I think they would have to hunt for it. I don't think that it's going to be as a matter of course something that they'll have.
Real quick, back to the offensive line, just for injury update kind of thing. Brian O'Neill gets injured in the Raiders game, doesn't play the Bengals game. Like, is he? Do you think he could go this week? If
Yeah, so I think that he's on track to go. I don't know that like 100% certain at the moment, but if he doesn't, it's David Quessenberry, which is a decision I kind of disagree with. Last year was Blake Brandel, but they've moved him entirely to guard, and Blake Brandel's been like a good backup tackle. I don't really know why you would do that, but that's what it is. And Quessenberry did better than I expected, if I'm going to be 100% honest. But I don't have a ton of faith that that's going to continue being like a locus of high level play or anything like that. I think that that's going to be a concern. That said, I mean, like the Vikings were like very good at run blocking, and they did not shy away from running behind Quessenberry. Again, the Bengals front, but I think that was like a pleasant surprise, and I think that they'll continue to kind of adjust what they do based off of like how well that matchup goes. I think that's going to be pretty big for them, and I think like like Aiden Hutchinson seeing like chips and double teams all year. I think the Vikings are not going to stray away from that too much. And I think the Vikings tend to chip too much anyway. And so I think that we're probably going to see a lot of that in this game. And my concern about their chipping is that like very often one of the key elements of a passing progression is going to be the tight end who chips, usually Hawkinson, and the timing is just off after the chip. Right. He doesn't. Hawkinson's a very good tight end who's not a great at anything. You all know this. And one of the things that he's not great at is re-entering the timing of the route when it's disrupted. He's very good. He's not, he's not great.
Fair. That's fair. One more question before we go to our break here. I want you to put your Kevin O'Connell hat on here. You're doing your scouting of the Lions. What's, I guess, the biggest concern you have looking at the Lions in terms of maybe their ability to match up well against the Vikings offense?
I don't think they've got enough healthy knees to survive being bitten all that often. That's a concern. No, so the Vikings are a very like volatile defense, just generally speaking, and that puts a lot of pressure on the offense to sometimes, like, obviously the defense has been successful for most of every game, right? But because it has kind of relied on like this blitzing and getting these turnovers in critical situations, and it has like lived on the edge of like this red zone stuff, like they've allowed a bunch of teams to enter the red zone, and then they just get like a takeaway. It's like, oh, don't worry about it. It never happened.
Right.
It puts a lot of pressure, I think, on that offense to just not put the defense in those situations. And it is a fairly turnover-prone offense, even though they should be a little bit more careful given the nature of their defense. Now, I know the Lions aren't like a huge takeaway team or anything like that, but I do think that given the physicality that the Lions defense provides, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the Vikings to just kind of lose all these fumbles. I mean, they've been a very bad fumbling team, also a bad fumble recovery team. That's a little bit less, statistically relevant because that doesn't bear out, but they are bad at it. They've been bad at it. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. I do think that they will continue to not take care of the ball. No matter who the quarterback is, when they get sacked, there's like a high degree of fumble probability, which is very annoying. I think Jefferson's like the only guy that doesn't fumble a ton. He still had a couple of fumbles. Madison's the worst, and he's not playing probably, so there's that. But Ty Chandler's had a low sample, but he's fumbled a little bit. Addison's fumbled a little bit. Hawkinson, So my concern is more the physicality is going to create some problems for this offense, and the offense is not going to work their way into situations where they really protect the ball and protect that defense.
All right, fair enough. Let's take a break. When we come back, more with Arif Hasan as we switch things over to the Lions offense versus Vikings defense when we come back here on First Byte. Okay, I'm going to take a minute here and thank some subscribers / donators, all that sort of stuff. I had to turn off the stream on my other laptop because the connection, I don't know if the connection's being weird for you guys, but it's being awful for me right now. Also, Arif made a kneecaps joke in 2023. I want to point that out.
I'm comfortable with that fact.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
I'm just glad we've moved past the I can't believe Dan Campbell would get a job before Eric Bieniemy. We've moved far enough away from that we can I can laugh at that pretty good. I can feel pretty comfortable I wasn't on the wrong side of that take.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're good. I felt obligated to stand for Bieniemy, but I was never really behind him that
much. Slim Quick, thank you for the 18 months. I just already lost your last season. Didn't we let Minnesota win the division in our house? Let's show, and then it got cut off. All these are getting cut off because I'm looking on my phone. I'm sorry. I get the Vikings won the division in our house, or they had an opportunity to win it in our house. They didn't beat the Lions at home.
No.
When did you guys win the division officially? Last year.
remember.
All right, fine. Doesn't matter. You guys didn't win the playoff game. Doesn't matter.
Hey, it's Vikings fans feel the same way. It's like,
it's true.
Okay.
Yeah. Flintown and Down, they give the 45-month subscribe to the stream. Nick the Greek, I'm not going to be able to read any of these other than this one, which I like, which says, well, if it isn't Arif, Karl Marx Hassan.
Yeah, it's pretty fair. The Substack is called Wide Left. I just feel like I invite these. He just put a new one in. Arif, land reform and redistribution is the only path to meaningful justice in Latin America, Hassan. I mean, technically that's putting words in my mouth, but it's not like I disagree.
Yeah, he's giving you Arif, Kamala Harris is a cop, Hassan?
Yeah, 100% she's a cop. Here's the thing.
Don't tell her anything. If she's talking to you, bring a lawyer.
We're gonna make a lot of money off Nick the Greek tonight because he probably has these. Yeah.
Buddy, I can go down the list.
Are any of these wrong? Like, he's like Robespierre didn't go far enough. I'm like, yeah, he went after the wrong people for sure, but the energy was good. Arif, Eugene V. Debs, that I would love to run for president from prison. Oh my God. Which we might see that again. Maybe not an apt comparison, but
AP is convinced that I'm not pronouncing your name right.
Okay, so here's the thing. So I've been seeing that a little bit. In a big way, he's kind of right in that the pronunciation attached to the language that my name is from, Arabic, is Arif, right?
Sure.
But I don't pronounce it that way. And so when I tell people my name, I say Arif, and it's just because I'm anglicized, right? It's just like I grew up in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and also I have baggage with my culture. I mean, it's just like an immigrant thing.
Sure.
And so I kind of reject a lot of that too. And so that's just who I was growing up. So the way I pronounce my name is Arif. If you see somebody else with the spelling of my name, probably pronounce it a little bit differently. But for me, it's Arif. But hey, I do appreciate it, AP, but that's just like not the deal in a specific moment.
We've already had a debate kind of like this with Muhammad Ibrahim.
Arif assimilated us. Oh my God!
I got in a big Twitter argument over the pronunciation of Muhammad Ibrahim's name.
Oh, he pronounced it Ibrahim.
He pronounces it Ibrahim. And
Yeah.
someone told me I was pronouncing it wrong. And then I linked him to his college profile page where he has his own pronunciation. He literally says it out loud. And I said, well, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, you better go tell him. And then like, then he got into like this whole like you're being racist, and it's just like I'm pronouncing the way his name the way he wants it to be pronounced. I'm
comfortable calling you racist. I just kind of want like a little better ammo.
You do? Uh-oh. What do you have?
I said I want to like bring more. I
thought you said you had something in the can. I thought you were
No,
ready
I mean,
to cancel me.
I could cook something up if you want. But
no, I'm good.
I've been canceled too.
Oh,
it happened last weekend.
That's true. You did get canceled on Twitter.
I got called sexist for saying that Jared Goff isn't a mobile quarterback.
Okay, you're gonna have to expand a little bit.
No, that's all that happened. That was the entire story. That's a completely fair.
I refuse to believe that's.
So it was in context of the Vikings-Bengals game, and that
doesn't help me.
It was Browning escaping to the side to make the throw in overtime.
Oh Jesus! Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And I was like, Lions fans can laugh right now, but Jared Goff is not making that play next Sunday. And It's like, and it was immediately like, the Detroit beat writers are the scourge of the earth and a waste of space. And I was like, whoa, hey, easy.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Right. And she was like, are you mansplaining football to me right now? And I was like, whoa, hold on. It's like, what? I said Jared Goff is slow. Like, and has no escapability.
Okay, but the context is you were arguing with someone. They happened to be a woman. That was the real context. It wasn't that you said jerk.
Yes. No. And also, the appropriate context is, by the way, like, this is a huge loss for the Vikings in the Lions' favor. Everyone is celebrating, and Ryan's going, well, Goff wouldn't have made that play.
Yeah. They'd rather have Jake Browning.
And I assumed Jeremy's mantle as the wet blanket.
You did, yes.
Also, there's like a Monty Python one in here from Dark Elf that's like killing me. The Anarcho-Syndicalist Commune. God, this is good. I love it. I like a lot of times when I'm on like live streams for like guest spots, I don't open the chat, but I definitely always open this chat.
Yeah, I don't understand why you don't. I don't understand why most people don't live stream their podcasts.
There's so much that I want to edit out of my podcast that I.
Okay, you know what? That's fair. Sometimes I wish I could too. Yesterday, I used the term "steady as a mouse," which is not a term.
I mean, they're famously like fairly jittery.
Yes. Yep. And I got tweeted that several times.
I don't
today.
drink IPA. Okay, most of these roasts I can get behind. I don't drink IPAs. First of all, I love porters and stouts. I'm a dark, but I'm like. I can't handle too much hoppiness, and like craft IPAs like love to turn that dial up way too much. So I'm drawing the line there.
All right. Yeah. It's fair. All right. I want to get back into this because I would like to maybe watch some of this game, although the way things are going, which is how I expected them to go.
Stafford's dealing. Good Lord.
Does not look like the Lions will be clinching a playoff spot tonight. Did the Pistons lose yet? Down 4 with 4 minutes to go. Great.
Oh, is Cooper Kupp injured? Oh, no.
Is he?
It looks like it.
That could be interesting. All right. Yeah, let's get back into it. Here we go. And we are back here on First Byte, breaking down Lions versus Vikings, Week 16 here with Arif Hasan. Let's get talking about that Vikings defense now. I know all the talk is about the blitz schemes, the dropping into coverage, all that sort of stuff, but I want to actually start with the Vikings run defense first, because I think it might be a pretty big key to this game. The Lions obviously like to run the ball quite a bit. They've been pretty darn good at it over the past couple months. So, but the Vikings have been pretty darn good at stopping the run, and I'm guessing that might have at least a little bit more to do with personnel than just scheme. So how have the Vikings been successful in that facet of the game so far?
So what's interesting is that they've had to like switch out their linebackers a bunch, mostly due to injury, but also like, they branched Brian Asamoah because he just wasn't playing as well as somebody like Jordan Hicks. So Jordan Hicks plays instead of Asamoah. Hicks is playing like he was a rookie in Philadelphia. Like that year was like really great for him, and then from there it kind of dropped off. He was playing at that level again, which is really great. Really creating a lot of tackles for loss, following kind of like the direction of the run, flowing to the ball, really great stuff. Gets injured, and then they kind of like rotate between a bunch of players. Brian Asamoah a little bit, but not as much. Ivan Pace Jr., undrafted free agent, won like Defensive Player of the Week 2 weeks ago. Um, he's been having a remarkable season. They've thrown like Anthony Barr in there. Like, by the way, Anthony Barr is back.
I forgot about
They've
that.
thrown, yeah, he's wearing the wrong number now, but yeah, he's like wearing 54. I hate it.
Oh.
That's Eric Kendricks' number.
I was afraid it was going to be like a 13 or something crazy like that. I hate
No,
that.
no. But like he was wearing 55. I got used to it. Now he's wearing 54, and even though it's just one number different, it just feels substantially different. I don't love it. Um, but like they've been switching out. Like there's like four different play. Like Troy Dye has played a bunch. And they've still been able to do a pretty good job of generating a bunch of tackles for loss. Some of it is how aggressive that defense is. So schematically, they'll push the linebackers into areas where the run would go because of how the gaps are fitted up because of the blitz that would have normally been on a pass. They're pretty good at kind of identifying where that should be or what the cutback lane is, but also obviously the Vikings are winning their blocks, right? Like that's like the key in any run defense. And yeah, and like Harrison Phillips is playing outstanding football. Jonathan Bullard, which I would have never expected, is playing like killer, like kick-ass run defense. Just like and it's either like he's doing a great job, like kind of maintaining his gap presence, or he's just creating tackles for loss. Like in terms of his decision making on when to freelance, he's doing a very good job of kind of identifying what he needs to do. Um, they previously had Dean Lowry before he got hurt. He wasn't playing super well. It's kind of been a huge surprise that that Jonathan Bullard, when he stepped in, was playing at a higher level. But yeah, and sometimes if they're up against like a run heavy team, they'll activate somebody like Kyrie Stonga. They might do that this week. I don't know. Who is a pretty decent nose tackle. He despite being like 330 pounds, he's more like a really good run defending three technique in that he creates like tackles for loss. He tries to get into the backfield, but he can get blown off the ball a little bit if he's not winning off the snap. Obviously it's absurd to look at him and call him that, but the way that it kind of profiles, like statistically and kind of how it plays out on the field is like that. So that's like a big part of it. But I think the biggest element is that their edge rushers are very good against the run. That to me is the biggest element in terms of their run defense. And I don't want to say that the Vikings are astounding from a run defense standpoint. I think in terms of EPA per play, they're like 10th, which is good, but it's not like, so I don't want to oversell it or anything like that. That will make a lot of mistakes. But Danielle Hunter, out of like all of the defensive player of the year candidates at edge rusher, Danielle Hunter might be like the best run defender out of all of them. It's probably like Danielle Hunter and then Max Crosby and then probably Myles Garrett in terms of like run defense alone. And he's just so good at identifying again like when to freelance, how to win his half of you attack half a man is like the coaching point on both sides of the ball. He knows how to win his half of the man and close out that gap. So I think that's a big part of it. DJ Wanham is doing all right in that capacity, but a lot of it's like Danielle Hunter's doing a great job.
So, Jeremy, based on what Arif just said, do you get any sense maybe that this game might be a little bit more David Montgomery heavy, or are we going to see, just as much Jahmyr Gibbs as maybe we've been hoping we wanted to see?
I was talking with this on Arif's podcast. I feel like a lot of it is, they'll just rotate on drive by drive. They'll feed whatever the hot hand is in this game, and you'd think it'd be more game plan specific, but I don't know if that's really how the Lions roll with those two right now. I think it's just whoever's feeling it, or we'll rotate drive by drive. I don't know. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it really is like the Lions feel like they're going to dictate when they have their running backs out on the field, right? Because they're interchangeable, and we talked about that all season long. That was the upgrade from having the duo of Jamal and DeAndre, was that, well, it kind of telegraphed things as far as what the offense was going to do.
Yeah.
If Montgomery's not off to a good start on a drive, there's nothing keeping Jahmyr Gibbs on the sideline, right? Like, we're not saying that it'll be strictly drive by drive, but like I think they have more freedom to kind of dictate what they want to do on offense when it comes to those running backs. So, I guess, Arif, I want to talk about maybe covering running backs. This is totally off the outline, Jeremy, but tell me more about Ivan Pace, because like every time I watch him, he looks like an absolute menace. out on the field, and
He rules.
he has an awesome coverage grade. PFF, really high grade for a linebacker, an undrafted guy. Like, tell me more about this guy and how he factors into the Vikings defense.
Honestly, I think coverage is his weakness. If I'm being like completely, so like this is actually
At
this is actually
PFF, at PFF, are you?
well, no.
Let's do
I
it.
don't think PFF is necessarily wrong because this also reminds me of when like Anthony Barr had like a really high coverage grade for the Vikings. Well, it turns out like they made Eric Kendricks do all the really difficult stuff, and then Anthony Barr is like buzzing to the flat, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you stopped like the halfback from receiving getting the target, like good dude. Um, I I love Anthony Barr, but it's like, you know. But like Ivan Pace has been given a lot of assignments where, first of all, he's like blitzing a lot more than a typical linebacker, but he's given a lot of coverage assignments that don't really ask a lot of him from like an awareness perspective. Like he's not being asked to hit his zone line marks and kind of flow to the ball as much. He's doing it a little bit more in the past couple of weeks, but it's still not a huge part of his game. It was kind of the weakness of his coming out of the draft, which is why he was undrafted, right? A 5'10" linebacker whose weakness is coverage is like kind of nuts, right? Like, why would you get that guy? Well, it turns out he's a dynamo. Like he's a bowling ball. He's really great at blitzing. He's really good at run defense. And so he's really like physically blows people up. That's like the thing that he's good at, and then he's like getting good at coverage. One hopes, right? But if he's being asked to like run with a tight end down the field, down the seam, I that would be a concern of mine. So like I think that that's kind of the way that plays out. They're just putting him in positions where he wins. Another element of this is the Vikings. A lot of people, when they talk about the Vikings scheme, I think rightly so, focus on the pass rushing and the blitzing element of it, but also like the players that they put on the field, like they do a bunch of three safety, sometimes three safety, three corner, like nickel and dime looks, right? And their third safety is Josh Metellus, who's having an outstanding year. He's playing a ton of snaps and he's picking up a lot of the coverage assignments that you would expect, a linebacker in that situation to pick up. And so that is helping in terms of the coverage responsibilities. Now, if the Lions go heavy, which I feel like is characteristic of the Lions, um, I don't know how often we'll see the dime look, but we may see a lot of nickel just because that's where the Vikings are most comfortable, and so there might be a personnel mismatch there. Again, the Vikings have been pretty good against the run despite all that. Part of that's because players like Cam Bynum and Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus are very good run defense safeties. Although in the last couple of weeks, Bynum has been missing more tackles than I think we're comfortable with. But a lot of it has just been like, hey, we're gonna aim the linebacker at the gap we think our running back would go to, and hopefully that works out. And it has been, and he's very good at being a missile. So that's a lot of it. But I mean, he's an outstanding player. It's just like coverage is not the area that I would rely on him the most.
I want to get to some of the crazy stuff that they do in terms of pass rush, in terms of dropping into coverage, all that sort of stuff. And I want to start with kind of a more basic question because I was hard on the Vikings this offseason. I'm not going to lie. I did not think they were going to be a great team this year. I think their personnel probably got worse on the defensive side of the ball.
100% agree.
Okay. So you're with me there. So I guess my question then is like, I was definitely worried about the Brian Flores hiring. My question is, because I was like, okay, but he's not going to turn around in year one. So what has he done to do that? Like, has he simplified things while also creating a bunch of chaos? Because it does not look simple at all. So how I guess how has he managed? Is he just an outstanding coach? Is that the answer?
Yeah, which I think Dolphins fans would have some contention with that characterization. But
sure.
Yeah, what's interesting though is that when he showed up to the Dolphins, their defense was like 30th or something like that the year before he arrived, and he brought them up to like 14th, which is great.
Sure,
that's really fantastic. And then he brought them to like second the year after that. So you would think like maybe kind of a similar timeline. We've seen a lot of really good defensive coaches turn defenses around after 2 years. Mike Zimmer did that in Minnesota, where they went from like 27 to 19 to 1. And that's like a fairly typical, like that happens on both sides of the ball because you have to get your personnel right. You have to train the defense. And what's happening here is like fairly, I'm not going to say unprecedented, but fairly unique. And there's a really good story by Kevin Seifert over at ESPN that kind of explores this question, I think, in a very satisfying amount of detail. When he was at Pittsburgh with the Steelers, Mike Tomlin, they like share a practice facility with Pitt, which is weird but cool, I think. Just have like the local ties, right? I think it's really cool to, and that would allow him to interface a lot with former receiver Taekwon Underwood, which he's a defensive assistant now for Pitt. And also Pat Narduzzi, right? Who's running, a really interesting scheme over there. And so for the entire year, he's like absorbing a lot of elements to this defense that has, it's not as blitz heavy as what the Vikings are doing, but it's creating this interesting, like, a lot of times when you're blitzing that many players, you're almost always in man coverage, and the Vikings aren't. They're in zone coverage, which is like, wow, that's bold. But it also confuses quarterbacks a lot because they're not hitting their landmarks in the right way. The leverage is off because like you can identify man coverage based off of like the cornerback leverage, right, against the receiver, and they're leveraged wrong for this to be a blitz. But also there's like 7 people at the line of scrimmage. It's like a lot to sort through with like 2.5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And so like that's part of it is that like you've got the zone look behind a blitz heavy front, and the blitz is very good at disguising itself. Like they make sure that players aren't giving away who's doing what on these blitzes. Plus, he does mix in a fair amount of stunts and twists, not as much as when he was with Miami or when he was with the New England Patriots. It's not as stunt or twist heavy as either of those teams, but he does mix a fair amount of that up, and that creates communication problems along the offensive line. And the Vikings aren't getting a ton of pressure. In fact, I believe they're like one of the lowest pressure rate units in the league. But the quarterbacks are anticipating pressure and they're getting rid of the ball quickly. The Vikings have the lowest opponent time to throw in the NFL by a fairly substantial margin, and it tends to be a very low depth of target. They're throwing a ton of screens, a ton of slants, a ton of getting rid of the ball quickly, and the Vikings tackle very well. And so they're creating situations where they know what the quarterback is going to do, and then they just take care of it. Against the Bengals, that didn't happen. The Bengals in the fourth quarter were like, you know what, screw it. We're just gonna chuck it deep, I guess. And like Jake Browning is not like a chuck it deep guy, but he's also very confident. And
Yeah.
so when they were like, hey, you got to chuck it deep, you got T Higgins, and he's like, yeah, I'm good. And he'll like throw it deep. And now you're in a situation where you've got like 5'10" Mickey Blackman, or rookie third round pick, up against T Higgins, uh, and it's not working out, right? And so that like a lot of times offensive coordinators don't have the confidence, even when they've got a really good offensive line, that they're going to have the time to throw it deep. The Bengals should not be one of those teams. They have an awful offensive line, right? And still, Zach Taylor was like, oh, well, all this other stuff's not working. We might as well, right? And they scored 3 touchdowns from 3 drives at the end in the fourth quarter. So a lot of it is the Vikings force quarterbacks to throw short, and they tackle well. A lot of it is that there's a lot of confidence that the players have in the system, and I know a bunch of people talk about that all the time. It sounds like a tired whatever. But like the thing that's really interesting to me that makes it seem like the players do like own the defense in a way that seems not as common when we're engaging in this kind of like off-season fluff speak about players being confident in the scheme, is that the players just get to change the call in the field like whenever they want. And so like he'll give them a call and they'll understand the purpose behind that. He like encourages players to ask why, which again you hear that a lot. But when the players know like why the play is called the way it is, when they adjust or change the play, they'll do it to fulfill the same function that Flores is asking them to fulfill. And that allows that defense to be insanely unpredictable. But B, it also allows the players to feel like they own the defense in a really substantial way, and that the defensive performance is in many ways on them, but they also can respond much more quickly to the realities of what's happening on the field than a defensive coordinator can. And so it's a much more adaptable defense in that way.
Can you think off the top of your head where this year the blitzing has come at of a fault of Brian Flores? Like any times that stand out to you in terms of like, hey, offenses were able to kind of wrap their brain around this and they were able to kind of punish the Vikings and the Vikings defense because of some of the aggressiveness.
Yeah, I don't actually think the Bengals game would be a good example of that, despite kind of what I just described, because a lot of the big plays did occur when the Vikings rushed four, which was like
And they were playing
actually,
very conservative, right, at the end of the game.
yeah, which is very unusual for Brian Flores.
Right.
And rushing four is also just very unusual for him. Like it's 3 or 6 is usually what happens. If you combine the rush 3 snaps with the rush 6 snaps, the Vikings have like 65%, and the rest of the league is at like 10. It's crazy. Because when teams blitz, they usually like send 5. You
Right.
got to cover, right? So yeah, it's so I think that the rushing four stuff against the Bengals was like kind of unusual, but they didn't have like the horses to really do that. They don't get a ton of pressure with four. Early in the season, there were a lot of instances where the blitz heavy system created some opportunities that other teams took advantage of, specifically like Baker Mayfield, who I mean, he's having a good year, but I think at the time we were all like, all right, this is going to be another year of this defense being garbage. Baker Mayfield, really? Um, and the defense went through like a huge shift in week 4, week 5. Like they changed the scheme in a really significant respect, and that changed the defensive numbers in a big way. Justin Herbert did worse against the blitz than he did against non-blitzes, but there were still opportunities that he had against the blitz that created some pretty big plays. Of course, at the time, he had a fairly healthy team, which is kind of a luxury for him. Um, and they were able to like chunk it deep to like Mike Williams or like give like 15 passes. I think Keenan Allen set a franchise record for receptions in that game. So like, yeah, there are, but like a lot of times it's just been relatively sound where like they blitz a ton and teams just don't know where the hole is in the coverage, and so they either throw the ball away. Like I've seen like fourth down throwaways, right?
Uh-oh.
Which
Uh-oh.
I know you're familiar with
Uh-oh.
that. But like now other teams are doing it. Now it's a safe space for fourth down throwaways.
Doesn't make it okay.
Oh, Reef.
Don't condone that kind of behavior on the show.
Digging up old scars, Arif. How dare you?
Look, I already did the kneecap spit. If I can withdraw as many old memes as possible, I will.
Yeah, we'll get a bingo.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so like I've seen that. I've seen like teams are just like, oh, there's like too much heat. We gotta dump the ball off. It's like 3rd and 22. You do not gotta dump the ball off. What are you doing? But they are, right? Because it's like the quarterback is like, blitz, I gotta get rid of this. And yeah, so like again, the pressure is not really there. The sack rates are okay. Daniel Hunter, I think, is like 4th in the NFL right now. It's somewhere between 2nd and 4th in the NFL on sacks. But a lot of that's just like the quarterback finally decided to hold on to the ball, like much to his chagrin, more than anything else.
Interesting. All right, I want to move on to the final and most anticipated part of the show, and it's called the one thing we think we know, where we make a prediction about the game. Doesn't have to be the score prediction, doesn't have to be the winner. It can be any aspect of the game, just predicting something that's going to happen. I won't put your feet to the fire yet, Arif. We'll have Ryan show you how it's done first. Oh, you already have it. Well, you don't go first. That's not how it works. So, Ryan, what is the one thing you think you know about Lions Vikings?
Well, I kind of feel some more pressure now, considering that there's somebody out there who is tracking our results and our wins and losses on Twitter. Yeah,
I inadvertently asked people to do that last weekend.
What do you mean inadvertently? How do you accidentally do that? What do you mean inadvertently?
Well, I said I wonder if anyone does it, and of course, just saying that is like, oh, I'm gonna go do that.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with this. Yeah, this happens to me all the time.
Yep. There's a chart and there's colors and
oh god,
yeah,
oh wow,
yeah. So I feel added pressure, but I feel like I hope I'm appealing to the person who's putting together that chart, that this one can be worth +2, so I can get back.
Oh, does he like score them based off of how unlikely they are?
Yes, kind of. Sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's dark green and whatever. Nobody cares about this. My one thing I think I know
sounds like you do
about Lions Vikings is that Jared Goff is going to turn the ball over on a play where it's his first read. I feel like I've just seen this before, like the Bears game, right? Yeah. Where Jared gets locked on a read, first read, he's making that throw no matter what. And I just feel like there's an opportunity there for Brian Flores to take advantage of it. So I don't know. I think that there's a Jared Goff turnover in this game.
Yeah, that was very much in consideration for my one thing I think I know. And it was going to be more particular. It was going to be throws an interception to a linebacker. Like just throws it, like he panics.
We're getting pretty granular.
Yeah.
There's only going to be like one linebacker on the field. You got to be.
He'll find him.
He'll find him.
No. I don't want to be too Jared Goff hatey. It's just, to me, this is I think it's fair to say, like, this is a little bit of a concerning matchup for Jared Goff, a guy who, when he feels the pressure, whether it's there or not,
sorry, I just read the Twitch chat.
Yeah, our chat's being unruly. So yeah, I mean, without projecting us like as Goff haters, I think just this in particular is a very interesting matchup for him. I'm very curious as how he's going to navigate this very unique defense that seems to maybe be specifically targeted to panic a guy like him who tends to get panicked when he sees pressure again, whether it's there or it's simulated. So I think it's a heavy pick.
Right. And I don't think it's anything where I'm saying like that one turnover is going to sink the Lions, because I think that the Vikings have their own problems on offense. You know what I mean?
Sure. All right.
Yeah, I don't have a quarterback. Yeah, that's pretty huge.
that's a big problem.
That's an issue.
All right. We'll go to you next.
Not as steady as a mouse for sure.
Shouldn't have ever given you ammo.
Well, I would have asked why there's like 80 comments about steady as a mouse at some point. So I'm glad you got ahead of it.
Yeah. Arif, what's the one thing you think you know about Lions Vikings?
That Khalif Raymond's going to get a 40+ yard touchdown. He's like a non-entity, right? But like every time, even for the Titans, every time he plays against the Vikings, he gets like a big playoff, and I'm just like, this dude, like because I used to like watch other games before I previewed them. Now I just go off of vibes, so I'm much more accurate. But but like I'd like watch like, hey, I'm gonna watch the previous opponent. I watched the previous 3 games. I watched the Lions. Khalif Raymond gets like nothing. And he goes off for like a 40-yard touch. It's just, come on, man. Like, what? How? And it's like against a different corner. It's not even like a matchup thing. It's like he did it to like Xavier Rhodes with the Titans. He's done it to Trey Waynes. He's done like everybody.
You know what? I kind of feel the same way about KJ Osborne.
KJ Osborne always has games against the Lions.
That's what I'm saying.
Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. He's like receiver 4 now. So
yeah. Well, okay. It's Khalif Raymond is receiver 4. Like.
AP's telling me I'm pronouncing Khalif wrong. I love this. This is good.
It's Khalif.
Khalif. Yeah. Okay. So Osborne is an interesting receiver because he's like, he's like kind of at extremes. He's very good at some stuff and he's very bad at other stuff. This year, he's also additionally been very bad at like catching the ball, which is like a critical element of the job. If you like look at the job description, it's like right there. He's like not good at it. He leads the Vikings in drops by a somewhat substantial margin, which is important because the Vikings lead the league in drops. I mean, Madison leads the Vikings in drop percentage, but like Osborne's second, and he leads the team in total drops. That's a huge problem. He's not winning his contested catches, but it's also like his route spacing is wrong. Like there have been a ton of plays this year where a quarterback, whether it's like Cousins or Mullins or Dobbs, is like throwing it to a receiver, and there's actually like 2 receivers there, and because of that, there's 3 defenders there, and now all 3 have access to the ball, even though like really there should have just been 1 based off of like the route concept. It's because Osborne keeps on like running routes at the wrong depth or with the wrong spacing and inviting defenders into the catch. It's like very frustrating. That's it. Last year Osborne was great. Up until the playoffs. Now that game against pretty bad.
I'm somehow more convinced he's going to have a big game on Sunday now. After you've told me all of this.
Yeah, that's fair. I think. He's like bounced between receiver like 2 and receiver 5. It's like weird. Yeah. The Vikings they benched him for Jalen Naylor like last week, and then Jalen Naylor got hurt. And so they're like, all right, put Brandon Powell out there, and then Brandon Powell got hurt, and they're like, all right, okay, Osborne, you fine, and then he drops the pass. It was amazing, but like he should be wide receiver 3 based off of like his experience, but like Brandon Powell is just killing it, and Jalen Naylor is a player, and so sometimes if you bench a guy, you got to put that player on the field. It's like one of those. But yeah, I just spent like a couple minutes dogging him, so I think you're right. He's probably gonna make some big plays.
To be clear, that is not the one thing I think I know about this. But I am gonna stick with the Vikings pass offense. And I'm gonna get very specific here. The one thing I think I know is that Nick Mullins will throw for 300 yards again, second straight game, but he will also throw 2 interceptions again. So he will almost match his stat line from last week against the Bengals.
I'll allow 2 bonus points if you can name both the players who get the interceptions.
Brian Branch.
It sounds like you're not in control of the points.
Brian Branch, Alex Anzalone.
I'm taking control, Arif.
I'm taking control.
Alex Anzalone, that'd be big. Like, I feel like Anzalone needs a game.
It's gonna be a deflected pass, so it won't be him. It'll be deflected at the line. He'll catch it. It's
wow.
Fine. All that matters.
Gas him up and bring him down.
All that matters is you see that hair flying out of the back of his helmet. It looks like he's doing something good.
That's right. All right, let's get out of here. But before we do, of course, we want to give our guest an opportunity to promote their stuff. Arif, where can the people find you and read your stuff and listen to your stuff?
All right, so I've got 2 podcasts: the Norse Code podcast, which Jeremy was just on, Minnesota Football Party, which Jeremy is banned from.
Good.
Yeah. And then I write over at the Wide Left Substack. That's wideleft.post.substack.com. You can find me on Twitter at Arif Hasan NFL, spelled ArifHasan, 1 S, by the way. A lot of the chat's getting that wrong. NFL. Just hey, if they're gonna like dog at you about like the pronunciation of my name, I get to like my name is on the screen.
Listen.
It
is on the screen.
It's right. It is. It's like I see it on the
Yeah. It's right there too.
It's 1 S. So Arif Hasan NFL. And sometimes I freelance, but I tweet all my articles out, so you can find that stuff there.
Yeah, follow him. He's a great follow. Mostly, he's a good follow. Arif, love having you here, buddy. I guess see you in 2 weeks. I don't know. I'll be honest.
Yeah, sure.
If the Lions have the division wrapped up, I might not have you on.
Bad blood after these 2 podcasts.
Yeah, right now it doesn't feel like I'm ready to have you on again. To be completely honest, maybe 2 weeks apart, the heart grows fonder. That whole thing.
I understand. Yeah, right. That kind of dug a pretty big hole in terms of our relationship here.
We're gonna find out real quick whether or not we can be roommates if the Lions play the Vikings, 3 times in 4 weeks.
Nope.
Hey, I clean dishes now, man. I'm good.
We're gonna contact your Daily Norseman co-host if that happens.
He doesn't know anything about football, so that should be fun.
All right, let's get out of here. Arif, thanks again for joining us. Everyone, thank you for listening. Until next time, hopefully the next time you hear our voice, we're talking about the NFC North champion Detroit Lions. But until then, it's chaos. Be kind.
Recording stopped.
And I forgot to tell you this part, Arif. We're still technically live with our live audience, even though the recorder's off.
I figured.
The broadcast is still going.
I figured.
But I'll be honest, I don't want to stick around very often because I still have a lot of work to do. I'm very tired, and I would like to watch the second half of this football game, even though Stafford just put up a touchdown at the end of the half.
Yeah, they were really putting the screws to the Saints.
The Saints did sneak a touchdown in there somehow, so it's not 17-7. We don't need to talk about the Pistons.
Dude, they lost.
They sure did.
I came this close to talking myself into the spread. -2.5.
As soon as I saw they were favored, I'm like, oh god, they're going to build Pistons fans up. This is going to be the one, and then knock them down.
Everybody's Reddit page is just them when the Pistons are like coming up for the week. They're like, we can't be the team. Like if they're one of those teams that the Pistons could end the streak versus against, they're like, not against those guys, please.
I am so familiar. I mean, that was what the Timberwolves were.
Yeah,
we can't let them end their streak. That's embarrassing.
Yeah. Tactile Puma, by the way, Arif, they say that you should be in the Lions front office with how much you value vibes.
Yeah, I've stopped watching the games. It's all about vibes. That makes sense.
Because I feel like there's no more vibe pick than Jack Campbell that the Lions have made.
I mean, in fairness, his combine numbers are good. So there are some numbers that would suggest something.
That I don't know.
I think the consensus board had him as like a 3rd round pick.
Is that true?
I think so.
It very much felt like I'm hot at the craps table. Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like we'll just keep rolling.
Yeah. I feel like that was the Broderick Martin pick, man. It's like, hey, we're really rolling.
That you're at the end of the night. You put all your number on one, or you put all your chips on one number at the roulette table for Broderick Martin. Like, I have all these mid-round picks. Jeremy, you love that trade. Those are the best trades.
I love trade ups. Yeah, they're my favorite.
Yeah, classic. Jeremy Analytics Riceman loves trading up.
No. To reduce the workload, trading away all those.
Okay, that's fair.
Like from yeah.
Dude,
remember,
so
Arif remember when he was drowning that year?
God,
year was that?
15 picks. It was like 21. 15 picks, dog.
And how many of them were on day 3? Weren't there a ton on day 3?
Yeah, it was like 4 picks days 1 and 2, or 5 picks days 1 and 2, and like 10 or 11 in day 3. It's just like, good Lord, I'm writing all of these up. The Athletic's like, yeah, you got to write every single one up, and I'm just a human. It's just like crazy.
I would walk out of the media room if Brad
like-
Holmes pulled
like
out
the
something
thing-
like that. I'm just like, you know what?
The lowest number of picks that Spielman has ever exited a draft with, he'll enter with like 3. The lowest he'll leave with is like 9. Like it's just like all the time, dude. So like that's 9, 10, 11, 12, 15. I've had all of those classes. I've seen some shit.
So somebody's got to keep numbers on that, right? Like GMs, like draft picks per draft. Like that,
I'm sure
somebody's got to be keeping track of that.
Well, now
right?
that you said it, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
I think there was a stat floating around out there after the Vikings drafted 15, and somebody was like, "Should we look into this?"
yeah.
But I don't know if it's been updated since then.
Yeah.
All right, this is good.
100 bits from Nick the Greek says Kirk Cousins' Bible has a special chapter about Santa Claus being real.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about Kirk Cousins in the Bible. That is, I'm not.
That's the line you're drawing?
Look, okay, so he did like a bit with Focus on the Family. Like he did an interview with them, which if you're not familiar with Focus on the Family from a political perspective, they're like a very Christian right-wing organization that, as the name would suggest, focuses very much on the family with a very particular and specific narrow definition of what a family is.
Got it.
And his appearance had nothing to do with their politics. He was just like motivational, like when you believe in God, good stuff happens to you, like you become a quarterback of like a mid-range team. Sorry, but like it's like the whole Kirk Cousins story, right? And that was the whole thing. But like it does promote the organization, and the organization for a lot of people, especially those who overlap with my politics, not a popular organization,
Sure.
right? And so he did that. Someone alerted me to it, and I didn't write it up because I was just like, I've already done my whole bit about Kirk Cousins and his politics. Did a whole year of him like refusing to take the vaccine because of the Bible. I'm he explicitly was like, the Bible tells me not to take the vaccine, and we're like, I don't know that word is in there, but okay. So we did a whole thing, right? And I'm like, I'm done. I've made it clear kind of what I think about Kirk Cousins' politics, and he does the thing with Focus on the Family, and I didn't write it up, and like people are like mad at me that I didn't write it up, and I was like, look, man, other people have written, please, leave me alone.
You don't need to dunk on every single opportunity you get to.
Yeah, like I'm good. Like my position is clear. We don't need to go any further than that.
That's fair. That's fair. When we don't need to get into it either.
Yeah,
I'm sure Twitch is okay with it. Not sure about YouTube. Different crowds.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
I'm kidding, YouTube. I love you guys. Should we? I think we should get out of here.
Yeah, we should.
We should get out of here.
Good idea. Probably a good idea.
Thank you all.
Ryan's like, what are you? I don't want to be part of this conversation.
I have one more day to get through before Christmas break. Like, let me just get through.
I don't know what the schedule is going to be like for the rest of. We're not doing a Madden Sim. Obviously, I don't have Madden anywhere near me, and I don't want to do Madden Sim this week, anyways. Don't even know when we're going to do post game, all that sort of stuff. We're still kind of working out the kinks there. But we'll have some sort of audio up after the game, I'm sure. So we'll have that. I don't know when we'll do a full POD cast because, unfortunately, coming right out of Christmas, we got a short week. Saturday night game against the Cowboys. So we'll try to fit everything in. Just follow us on all the socials and stuff and get alerts every time we go live, and you won't miss anything. Keep it simple. Fair? Great. All right, guys.
Easy peasy.
We're going to leave you all there. Go watch Thursday Night Football. Go eat Wingstop at full price because the Pistons didn't win. And we'll see you guys soon.